Hello, Tom Levecchio here with the latest edition of the New Theory Podcast. Today, we got a very special guest, Natasha Wallace, who's joining us where, from the UK?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And we will be talking about, well-being and just kind of overall personal well-being, and then also how companies and businesses, especially as entrepreneurs listening, can utilize strategies to have a well-being program for our employees, stakeholders, etc. So welcome to New Theory Podcast. How you doing today?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
So I understand, you reached burnout at your previous, corporate life, your previous life. Walk us through what you were doing, how did you know you reached burnout? What are some of those signs? And then what did you do to restart your life?
Okay, so, what was I doing? I was just working really, really hard, but that's what I'd always done. So it was no different from usual. and I really liked working hard. I think that what I have learned is that just working hard in itself isn't necessarily the thing that's going to sort of drive you over the edge. Although for some people it is. For some people it is simply that, just working too hard. But so I was working really hard. I was hugely passionate about what I did, about my work. So I was a HR director for a professional services company, and I'd worked there for years. So I was actually with that firm for 10 years. So, and for the most part, I really, really loved my job. I was really passionate about my work. My job was to create and execute the people strategy, and the strap line for that was to create a better place to work. It really, really tied in with my values, because that's always been the most important thing for me working in HR is to create a working environment that people can really sort of thrive in and can be happy and do really great work in, recognizing that you can have really high performance and make the shareholders happy, and the people can be happy too. I just don't feel like you should compromise on that, but it's not easy to achieve. So, that was my job. And over time, I started to feel that I was getting more anxious. I wasn't sleeping very well. I'd have that waking up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and not being able to get back to sleep. So I'd just start working again. I'd work a little bit more in the evenings. I'd work a bit more at the weekends, just to sort of stay on top of stuff. Doing more work seemed to be my way of working through the stress, but it just made me more stressed. I'd get more emotional. I'd react more negatively, I guess, and stuff that was going on around me. So whereas I'd always been fairly positive and optimistic, I started to just see the glitches and things and see where things weren't working. And I became a bit more gloomy about everything. And then I became a bit more argumentative with my sort of fellow leaders when I saw them doing things that I just didn't think were good enough. So I started tackling them more and being, I guess, a bit more aggressive with them about the fact that we needed to change and it wasn't good enough. And I stopped sort of trying to influence in a sophisticated way, and I just became a bit more testy. So, but also I can remember traveling home from London one day, just feeling wired. I felt totally wired. I couldn't think straight. I just felt really uncomfortable in myself. And I was thinking, am I having a nervous breakdown? Is this what a nervous breakdown feels like? So I remember Googling symptoms of a nervous breakdown. And thankfully the list that I read wasn't what I was feeling, but I definitely knew something wasn't right. And I must admit, it was like a year from that point until I actually burnt out. It was sort of like a ticking time bomb, death by 1,000 cuts. A combination of me working really long hours, not being able to stay on top of my work, being sort of constantly inundated with everything that was going on around me, having too much to do, coupled with not feeling as though I was making a difference and not feeling as though I was sort of living my purpose, and not feeling as though I was able to do a good enough job creating the organization that I wanted to create, because I wanted to do that much more quickly, I guess, than the rest of the organization was ready for. So I see that now as a timing thing. It wasn't that anybody was particularly wrong. I was just moving at a much quicker pace. So, my burnout then led to me just almost flatlining, where I couldn't make any decisions. I lost all my confidence. I felt really, really anxious. And then I just sort of flatlined, didn't feel anxious at all. I didn't feel anything.
Wow. Well,
And it's horrible.
well, I mean, it's a little ironic because you were in an HR capacity, and ideally you were theoretically in the area that would set that pace and tone, and hopefully for the people, resources for a company, and then hopefully be able to provide either remedies or solutions or stuff, this type of thing. So ironically enough, is the fact that you're in the capacity and he's still burnt out shows you almost anybody can do that. So what are some tips, and I don't know if you touch this in your book, but I want you to talk about your book in a moment, but what are some tips for folks listening that are maybe experiencing burnout? What are some tips to maybe pump the brakes or slam the brakes and say, whoa, wait a second, I'm burning out here, but I do like what I do. I want to keep doing it, but I need to maybe have a better way of handling it. What are some of the tips and solutions of dealing with burnout? What are some of the things you would have said to Natasha at that time, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, okay. So the first thing, I guess, is don't work more. Don't
Exactly.
throw more of yourself at the problem, because that's not going to fix it. So, when you're feeling under pressure or stressed out, very often the answer is to slow down or even stop, in order to sort of get back on your horse to keep on going. I was so pre-programmed to work hard and to just, get stuff done and deliver. The thought of slowing down was totally against, fundamentally against who I was as a person. Now I do work at a slower pace, and it's so much better for my health. So that's the first thing. Don't throw more of yourself at it. You're not going to work your way out of this problem. Secondly, as long as you're just delivering, you're probably not developing yourself personally. You're not growing as an individual, as a human being. There's got to be an aspect of what you do every day, every week, every month that is helping you to get to know yourself better, to learn more about yourself, to learn more about how you work, who you are. I just didn't focus on that personal development stuff for a few years. And it was ironic, really, because I worked in an organization where I used to talk a lot about professional and personal development, and that you needed both to be the most rounded person. And I thought I'd done loads and loads of personal development over the years, and so I'd probably, done plenty. But actually, it's just an ongoing journey. You've got to keep on developing yourself. So, I mean, I've done various things since then to develop myself, but, both getting coached, like a coach myself. There's so many personal development programs and courses out there that you can go on, but even things like meditation or just going for a walk and allowing time for daily reflection is so important to reconnect with who you really are and what you really think and what you really feel. I think a lot of us are living in this sort of augmented reality where we think we're okay and we think it is all okay, but actually when we're really, really reflective and we're really honest with ourselves, we realize that it's not okay. So that would be another tip. And the other thing is to ask for help. I was really, really bad at that. I didn't necessarily do it because I thought I was above it. I did it because, one, I was a senior leader, so I thought I should have all of the answers. Two, I didn't have time to pay people back because I was too busy. So if I asked for a favor, I didn't know how I was going to be able to sort of give that back. And also, I think I had a fundamental belief that people only help you when you can give something back to them. But, a huge lesson that I learned, especially when I was writing my book, is that that's not true. And, I do believe in what goes around comes around. The help that I give people now, I don't expect them to help me back, but I know that maybe over the course of years, at some point, something might come up and we might come into contact with each other and, we'll pay each other back. But nevertheless, I mean, there's a lot of really, really great people out there who just want to help. So, yeah, I guess those would be my lessons.
Love it. Now, tell us about your book, The Conscious Effort. What is it about?
So, well, I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier on, Tom, about, isn't it ironic that I was an HR person who was sort of paid to look after the needs of other people.
Yeah.
I didn't look after my own. And I must admit, like, there was nobody who was more shocked than me about that when I reached burnout. I really, really couldn't believe it happened to me, because, you know, I was somebody who was really aware of other people, and I was trying to help other people all the time. And I thought that I was really great at listening to people and getting onto stuff that was broken in the organization and helping people talk stuff through. But I wasn't consciously aware of what was going on for myself, and that the habits and the ways that I was working and operating on a day-to-day basis were sort of slowly eroding my well-being. So, you know, I wasn't making enough time for friends and family. I wasn't eating well enough. I was drinking too much. I wasn't getting enough exercise. I wasn't getting enough rest. So all of those sort of just normal day-to-day physiological things, the things that nourish your body. But as I said before, I wasn't really doing a huge amount of sort of personal development. So I recognized that it was sort of a total lack of consciousness on my part. I wasn't consciously aware of the things that were actually effectively limiting me. And then when I stopped work and I had time, I just suddenly realized that, you know, people are just in these sort of automatic pilot modes where they go to work, they work really hard, they come home, they have some dinner, they crash out on the sofa, they maybe watch some TV, or they play on their phone, and then they go to bed. And that's sort of our daily existence. And I sort of thought there has to be more to life than that, really. You know, what are we here to do? What's our purpose? What are we supposed to be achieving? And I guess I really, really came to believe that really understanding ourselves so that we can, I guess, optimize ourselves whilst we're here, but also being able to do the best, most sort of purposeful, I call it good work, being able to do good work while you're here. So, you know, what are we doing to help each other? And I just decided that actually, without consciousness, unless you burst out of that automatic bubble, what the hell are you doing? You know, you might
Exactly.
not be, you're not helping yourself, you're not helping anybody else. What's the point?
Exactly. Listen, I love it. And it's interesting because you're seeing concepts that you think, especially now, are, you know, kind of common sense, but they're not, especially at the time. So how can we find your book?
So you can find it on most good online booksellers, Amazon being one of them, in some bookshops. I don't know where it is in the US, actually. I'm not familiar with your bookstores, but I know it's in some of them. But yeah, you can find it in most places. You just Google it, The Conscious Effect, 50 Lessons for Better Organizational Wellbeing, or you can go to my website, which is www.conscious-works.com, and you can find it there too.
Love it. And we'll put some links in the bio. Well, listen, thank you for being on. I believe that, you know, at some point in people's careers, especially entrepreneurs, tend to get burnout. I think it's a question is not, you know, if you couldn't stop burnout, it's how to do so. And in your book, The Conscious Effort, will help others prevent that. How can we find you? You want to share social media, or how can we find you? Is it via your website, or do you have any social media handles that you like to promote as well?
Yeah, I do. I never remember what they are. I'm on LinkedIn, so if you just Google Natasha Wallace Conscious Works, you'll find me. I'm on Insta, so Conscious Works, I think it's 0. And I'm also on Twitter, so that's Conscious Works _
Excellent. Natasha, thank you for being on the New Theory podcast, and thank you so much for the valuable information.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Tom.